In 1991, hikers found a body frozen in an alpine glacier. He had been dead for 5,300 years. In his pouch was tinder fungus and a scrap of pyrite. That man could make fire with materials you would walk right past on a trail. Today, people spend $200 on plasma arc lighters that die the second they get wet. Number 14 on this list kept humans alive before recorded history. Number 3 costs nothing and outperforms a $40 gadget. Hit that subscribe button. Let us count down the 20 poor man fire starting tricks that make high-tech survival gear look like a toy. Number 20, dryer lint. Every time you run a load of laundry, you are throwing away one of the fastest catching tinders on Earth. That gray fuzz trapped in your dryer screen is nothing but millions of tiny cotton and polyester fibers, each one thin enough to catch a spark and hold a flame. Your grandfather stuffed it into a coffee can by the back door. A single handful, pulled loose and fluffed into an airy nest, will take a spark from a flint or a ferro rod on the first strike and flare up in under a second. The trick is to keep it dry and keep it loose. Pack it tight and it smolders. Tease it apart until it looks like a bird's nest and it explodes into flame. Survival stores sell guaranteed one-strike tinder in little foil packets for $4 each. It is dryer lint. That is the whole product. They take the thing you sweep into the trash, put it in a shiny pouch, and sell it back to you at a markup of about 10,000%. Stuff a sandwich bag full, and it costs you nothing but the walk to the laundry room. Number 19, greasy potato chips. Greasy potato chips. This one sounds like a joke your uncle would tell, but ask any Boy Scout leader and they will nod. A single Dorito or any oily corn or potato chip burns for almost a full minute with a steady yellow flame. The oil that makes them bad for your arteries is the exact thing that makes them burn like a little torch. Hold a lighter or a match to the corner of one chip and it catches immediately, then keeps burning long enough to dry out and ignite damp kindling above it. During wet weather, when everything in the woods is soaked and your matches keep sputtering out, a fistful of chips from your pack is a waterproof fire starter that also happens to be lunch. The greasier, the better. Cheap flavored chips with the most oil and powder work best. Plain baked ones barely catch. A vending machine bag has maybe 15 fire starters in it. Meanwhile, the camping catalog wants $9 for a tin of waxed fire nuggets that do the exact same job. Your snack aisle beat them decades ago, and nobody noticed. Number 18, Vaseline cotton balls. Here is where poor man ingenuity starts to embarrass the gadget companies. Take an ordinary cotton ball, work a fingertip of petroleum jelly all the way through it until it is saturated but not soaked, and you have made a fire starter that burns for 4 to 5 minutes and shrugs off water. The cotton acts as a wick. The jelly is the fuel. A spark hits the dry fuzz on the outside, the cotton catches, and then the petroleum jelly keeps that flame alive long enough to light wet wood, green wood, almost anything you feed it. Your grandmother had a jar of Vaseline in the bathroom cabinet that cost $1 and lasted 5 years. A bag of cotton balls was 50 cents. For under $2, you can make 100 of these, tuck them in an old pill bottle, and carry a month of fire in your pocket. The high-end version of this exact idea is sold under a military-sounding name for $1 a piece. Same cotton, same petroleum. The men who figured this out were not engineers. They were just people who refused to be cold and refused to be broke at the same time. Number 17, waxed egg carton fire cakes. Before there were store-bought fire logs, there was the cardboard egg carton sitting in the trash after breakfast. Your dad would fill each little egg cup with dryer lint, sawdust, or wood shavings, then pour melted candle stubs or old crayon nubs over the top until the wax soaked in and hardened. When it cooled, he cut the carton apart into 12 individual cakes. Each one is a self-contained fire starter that lights from a single match and burns for 8 to 10 minutes, hot enough and long enough to get real logs going in the rain. The cardboard is the kindling, the lint is the tinder, and the wax is the slow-burning fuel, all built into one little cup. It costs nothing. The eggs came first, the wax came from candles that had already burned down, and the lint was free. A camping store fire log runs $3 or $4 and does less. This was the recycling program of the working-class kitchen long before anyone printed the word recycle on a bin, and it worked better than the thing they sell you now. Number 16. Jute twine tinder. That rough brown garden string coiled up in every shed and hardware drawer is one of the best spark-catching tinders in existence, and almost nobody knows it. Jute is a natural plant fiber, and when you cut off a 6-inch length and unravel it, then rub the strands between your palms until they fluff into a tangled ball of fine fibers, you create a mass of dry filament that takes a ferro rod spark instantly. It bursts into an orange flame the moment the sparks land. A whole spool of jute twine costs about $2 and holds enough tinder for 100 fires. Wrap a length of it around the handle of your knife or the shaft of your ferro rod, and you are carrying tinder and cordage at the same time, always within reach. Outfitters sell little bundles of processed natural tinder for a premium, calling it artisanal and bushcraft grade. It is garden string. The same string holding up your tomato plants will save your life on a cold night, and it will do it for pennies. First pattern break. Here is where the whole survival industry starts to fall apart. Walk into any outdoor store and you will see a wall of gadgets, plasma lighters, solar sparkers, fire pistons machined from aircraft aluminum, magnesium bars with compass and whistle attached. Every one of them promises to save your life, and every one of them costs between $20 and $200. But here is the thing nobody at the checkout counter will tell you. The failure point of a fire is almost never the spark. It is the tinder. You can throw 1,000 sparks a second with the fanciest lighter ever built, and if you have nothing dry and fine for those sparks to land on, you will still freeze to death holding a $200 tool. Every trick so far has been about tinder, because that is what actually matters. The people who survived the frontier, the Depression, the woods, did not have gadgets. They had knowledge, and knowledge does not run out of batteries. Number 15. Cattail fluff. Down at the edge of any pond or ditch in America stands the cattail, that brown sausage-shaped head on a tall green stalk. Snap one open in late season, and it explodes into a cloud of soft white down, thousands of tiny seed fibers packed tighter than any pillow. That fluff catches a spark instantly, faster than almost anything wild, and it is free for the taking on every marsh in the country. The old-timers knew to gather it, keep it bone dry, and use it as the first flash that ignites a larger tinder bundle. It flares up fast and burns out fast, which means you cannot rely on it alone, but as the thing that turns a dying ember into a living flame, it has no equal in the plant world. Pioneers stuffed it into pillows, into moccasins for warmth, and into their tinder boxes. Nature grows this fire starter for free along every waterway, replaces it every single year, and asks nothing in return. The survival catalog has never found a way to charge you for a swamp, which is exactly why they would rather you forget it exists. Number 14. Tinder fungus. This is the trick the Iceman carried 5,300 years ago, and it is still the closest thing to magic in the whole fire-making world. Certain hard, woody fungi that grow on dead trees, the horseshoe-shaped hoof fungus, the black knobby King Alfred's cakes clinging to dead ash branches, will hold a smoldering ember for hours once you get them lit. You strike a single spark onto the dry inner flesh. It catches, and then it just keeps burning slow and steady, a coal you can carry from one camp to the next without ever needing to make fire again. That is why the man frozen in the glacier had it in his pouch. It was not tinder to him, it was portable fire, the whole point of civilization tucked into a leather bag. For thousands of years, before matches, before lighters, this fungus was how people moved fire across the land. You can find it on a walk in the woods for free. Modern survivalists rediscover it, film it, and act like they invented cold. The Iceman was doing it before the pyramids were built. Number 13. Fatwood. Deep in the heart of every dead pine stump is a treasure the old woodsman called lighterwood, lighter knot, or fatwood. When a pine tree dies or is cut, the stump keeps pulling resin down into itself for years, saturating the wood with flammable pine sap until it is heavy, dark, and smells sharp when you cut it. That resin does not care about rain. A stick of fatwood will light in a downpour, in the snow, dripping wet, because the fuel is soaked all the way through the fiber, not sitting on the surface where water can wash it off. Shave a handful of curls off a fatwood stick, Touch a flame or a shower of sparks to them, and they catch and burn with a thick black smoke and a heat that dries out everything around it. Native Americans and early settlers prized these resin-heavy stumps and split them into fire sticks that lasted for decades. You can buy fat wood today, but you can also find it free in any old pine forest if you know to look at the stumps. The gadget crowd sells a soggy-proof fire starter for $20. The forest has been making a better one for free since before you were born. Number 12. Birch bark. The papery white bark peeling off a birch tree is coated in a natural oil called betulin, and that oil is the reason birch bark will light when it is soaking wet. You do not even have to hurt the tree. Just peel the loose papery outer layers that are already flaking off, roll them loose, and touch a spark or flame to the edge. It catches immediately and burns hot with a black oily smoke, hot enough to dry and ignite the damp wood above it. Woodsmen across the northern half of the continent, from the Ojibwe to the fur trappers, relied on birch bark as their go-to wet weather fire starter because nothing else in the cold forest lit so reliably in bad conditions. The oil is waterproof by nature. That is how it protects the tree, and that is exactly why it saves the person freezing beneath it. There is no camping store product that matches a strip of birch bark in the rain, and there never will be, because you cannot improve on a tree that has spent millions of years learning how to keep its own skin from rotting in the wet. Number 11. Feather sticks. When everything is wet on the outside, the dry wood is on the inside, and the feather stick is how the old-timers got to it. You take a dry stick, brace it, and with a sharp knife you shave long, thin curls down the length of it without cutting them all the way off, so the stick ends up covered in a fan of paper-thin wooden feathers still attached at the base. Two things happen at once. You expose the bone-dry inner wood that the rain never reached, and you multiply the surface area so a small flame can grip it and climb. A well-made feather stick will take a match or even a good spark and light itself, then carry that flame up into your kindling. This is not a product you buy. It is a skill you build with a knife and 10 minutes of patience, and it is the difference between a fire and a cold night when the whole woods is dripping. The bushcraft channels have made feather sticks look like an art form, and they are, but at the bottom it is just a poor man with a knife and the knowledge that dry wood is always hiding somewhere inside the wet. Second pattern break. Now here is where the sparks come in, and here is the truth the industry buries. For all of human history, until about 1830, nobody had a match. Not one. Every fire, every hearth, every forge, every candle for thousands of years was lit with a spark thrown from stone and steel onto a scrap of charred cloth or fungus. That is not primitive. That is proven. It worked through ice ages and empires. The methods coming up next are the ones that carried the entire human race, and they still work today with materials you already own or can find in an afternoon. The companies selling you a $200 arc lighter are betting you never learned that a rock and a piece of your own belt buckle could do the same job forever, with no charge cable, no battery, and no expiration date. Once you learn these, you stop being a customer. That is the part they do not advertise. Number 10. Char cloth. This is the secret that made flint and steel work for centuries, and you can make it in your backyard in 15 minutes. Take a scrap of 100% cotton, an old t-shirt, a strip of denim, a square of canvas, and pack it into a small metal tin with a tiny hole poked in the lid. Set that tin in a fire and let it cook. Inside, with the oxygen shut out, the cotton cannot burn, so instead it pyrolyzes, cooking down into a soft black carbon cloth that looks like the fabric turned to shadow. When the smoke stops coming out of the hole, you pull it off the heat and let it cool, sealed. What you get is a cloth so eager to catch fire that a single dull spark, the kind you would never think could light anything, lands on it and instantly glows into a spreading orange coal. Drop that coal into a tinder bundle, blow, and you have flame. For centuries, this was in every man's tinder box. It cost nothing but an old shirt and a tin can, and it makes the weakest spark on earth into a fire. Number 9. Flint and steel. Long before the disposable lighter, the tinderbox held two things: a sharp piece of flint or quartz and a curved piece of high-carbon steel, and together they made fire for hundreds of years. You hold the flint with a scrap of char cloth pinched against its sharp edge, and you strike down against it with the steel at a hard angle. What you are actually doing is shaving off tiny slivers of the steel, and the friction heats those slivers white-hot as they fly, throwing a shower of glowing sparks. One of them lands on the char cloth, catches, and you are on your way to a fire. The back of an old file, a worn-out steel striker, even the spine of some knives will throw sparks off a hard rock. This is the method that lit every colonial hearth and every frontier campfire, and it never wears out, never runs dry, and works after being dropped in a river. A ferro rod is the modern cousin, but a true flint and steel is nearly free if you have an old chunk of high-carbon steel and a hard stone from the ground. And it has already proven itself across more centuries than any battery ever will. Number 8. Steel wool and a battery. This one feels like a magic trick the first time you see it, and it uses two things sitting in most junk drawers right now. Take a pad of fine-grade steel wool, the 0000 superfine kind used for polishing, and touch both terminals of an ordinary 9-volt battery to it at the same time. The instant the circuit closes, electricity races through those hair-thin steel strands, meets resistance, heats them red, and the whole pad blooms into a spreading orange glow that ignites in seconds. Press that glowing wool into your tinder and blow. Even the flat contacts of a couple of AA batteries lined up will do it in a pinch, and a dead-looking battery that will not run a flashlight still holds more than enough charge to light steel wool. Preppers stash both together in a bag for exactly this reason. A pad of steel wool is $1 and a 9-volt is a couple more. And unlike a fancy plasma lighter, there is no delicate electronic module to fail. It is raw electricity meeting raw metal, the crudest possible fire, and it works cold, tired, and shaking when the expensive stuff quits. Number 7. Battery and a gum wrapper. Here is the trick every bored kid should know, and almost none do. Take a foil-backed gum or candy wrapper, the kind that is silver metal on one side and paper on the other, and cut it into an hourglass shape, wide at the ends and pinched thin in the middle. Touch one foil end to the positive terminal of a battery and the other end to the negative, completing the circuit. Because that middle is so narrow, all the current crowds through it heats up fast and burns through. And as the foil burns, it ignites the paper backing into a small flame. A single AA battery and a stick of gum, the two things rattling around the bottom of a glove box, become a fire on demand. This is the improvised fire starter of stranded motorists and stuck hikers, built from literal trash. No survival store sells this because there is no way to package it, but that is exactly the point. When you know it, you are never truly without fire, as long as you have a dead-looking battery and a candy wrapper, which in this country is almost always. Third pattern break. Now we leave sparks behind entirely because the next tricks pull fire straight out of the sky. There is a whole class of fire making that needs no flint, no battery, no fuel of any kind, only the sunlight and something clear to bend its light. And here is the part that should make you laugh. The survival companies sell solar fire starters and parabolic igniters for $30, $40, $50, and every single one of them is doing something you can do with trash from a recycling bin. Sunlight has been free since the first morning. The only thing anyone ever added was a way to focus it into one hot point, and the poor man figured that out with a piece of glass, a can of soda, and even a block of ice. Watch how cheap fire really gets. Number 6. Magnifying glass or eyeglass lens, the oldest solar trick in the book, and it lives in your pocket right now if you wear reading glasses. Any convex lens, a magnifying glass, a jeweler's loupe, the lens from a pair of far-sighted reading glasses will bend parallel rays of sunlight down to a single burning point. Hold it above a dark, dry tinder. Angle it until the bright dot of focused sun shrinks to the smallest, sharpest pinpoint you can make, and hold it steady. Within seconds, the tinder begins to smoke, then browns, then a coal is born, all without a single spark or drop of fuel. Kids have been frying ants and lighting leaves with magnifying glasses for 100 years without realizing they were practicing the same skill that could save their life. A pair of drugstore reading glasses is a few dollars and weighs nothing. As long as the sun is out, that lens makes fire forever, with no fuel to run out and nothing to break. The catalog sells the exact same physics with a rugged handle and a survival label for 10 times the price. Number 5. Ice lens. This is the one that breaks people's brains, and it is real. You can make fire out of ice. On a cold, sunny winter day, when it seems impossible that anything could burn, you take clear ice, freeze it clean if you can, and shape it into a lens, thick and rounded in the middle, thinner at the edges, polishing it smooth with the warmth of your bare hands until it is clear as glass. That block of frozen water bends sunlight exactly the way a glass magnifier does, focusing it to a hot point that can char tinder and start a fire, even as the lens itself sits below freezing. Arctic explorers and northern peoples knew this. The cold that is trying to kill you becomes the very tool that saves you. There is a deep and almost unfair beauty in it that on the coldest, brightest day, with no matches and no wood dry enough to spark, a person on their knees can carve a piece of ice into a burning glass and pull flame out of frozen water. No gadget on Earth does that. The planet handed us the trick for free and dared us to be clever enough to see it. Number 4. Coke can and a bar of chocolate. The bottom of an aluminum soda can is not flat. It is a shallow, perfect parabolic curve, the ideal shape for gathering light and throwing it to a single focal point, and all you have to do is make it shine. Rub the concave bottom of the can with a little chocolate or toothpaste or fine ash in a cloth, and polish it for 20 minutes until that dull metal turns into a mirror. Then aim the mirrored bottom at the sun and hold a bit of dark tinder about an inch out from the center, where all the reflected light converges into one blinding hot spot. In good sun, that spot will start smoking a piece of char cloth or dry punk in under a minute. A drink can pulled out of the ditch, a smear of the candy in your pack, and 20 patient minutes give you a solar fire starter that rivals the machined parabolic igniters selling for $40. Litter and chocolate against precision aerospace metal, and the litter wins. That is the whole philosophy of this list in a single soda can. Fourth pattern break. Now think about what you have seen. Frozen water, garden string, a soda can, dryer lint, a candy wrapper. Every one of these makes fire, and not one of them costs what a single fancy lighter costs. The survival industry has built an empire on one quiet lie, that fire is complicated and that you need to buy your way to safety. But the truth is the exact opposite. Fire is old. Fire is simple. Fire belongs to anyone patient enough to learn 3 or 4 of these tricks by heart. The last 3 are the deepest of all, the ones that ask the most and give the most, the methods that carried humanity out of the dark long before anyone thought to sell survival back to us in a blister pack. Number 3. Water bottle lens. Here is the one that costs nothing and beats a $40 gadget. A clear plastic water bottle, full to the top with clean water, becomes a lens. So does a clear sandwich bag filled with water and cinched into a round bulge, or even a plastic bag pressed against a jar. The water and the curved clear surface bend the sunlight the same way a glass magnifier does, gathering it into a bright focused point that will char dark tinder in seconds on a sunny day. Round the surface right, and you can shrink that point to a tiny burning dot and set a piece of char cloth or dry black punk smoking without a single spark. The bottle you were going to throw away, the one that came free with the drink, is a fire starter. Fill it with a puddle if you have to. Survival stores sell a solar spark lens in a little pouch for around $40, and it does nothing your empty water bottle cannot do for free. This is the trick that proves the whole point. The most disposable object in modern life, the plastic water bottle, will pull fire out of the sky if you know how to hold it to the sun. Number 2. The bow drill. This is the method that separates the people who read about survival from the people who could actually do it, and it uses nothing but wood, a shoelace, and effort. You cut a straight spindle of dry softwood, set its tip into a notch in a flat baseboard, and loop the string of a bent stick, your bow, around the spindle. Press down on the top of the spindle with a socket, a rock or bone to protect your hand, and saw the bow back and forth so the string spins that spindle fast against the baseboard. Friction builds. The wood dust piling in the notch heats and blackens, and if your form is right and your wood is dry, that dust ignites into a tiny glowing coal, which you tip into a tinder bundle and blow to life. Humans made fire this exact way for tens of thousands of years on every continent, with nothing bought from anyone. It is hard. It will humble you the first 10 times, but once your hands know it, you can walk into an empty forest with nothing in your pockets and walk out with fire. And no gadget failure, no dead battery, no store closing early can ever take that away from you. Number 1. The Tinder Bundle. At the top of this list is not a spark or a lens or a friction trick, but the thing that makes every single one of them actually work, and it is the one most people skip. The Tinder Bundle, the bird's nest, is a loose, dry, fibrous ball made from whatever fine material the land gives you: shredded cedar bark, dry grass, cattail fluff, jute, birch shavings, teased apart until it is airy and light and shaped like a nest with a hollow in the middle. Every method on this list, the spark, the coal, the sun, produces the same thing first, a small, fragile ember, and that ember dies in seconds unless it has this nest to fall into. You lay the coal in the hollow, fold the bundle gently around it, lift it to your mouth, and blow, slow and steady, feeding it air until the smoke thickens and thickens, and then all at once, the whole bundle bursts into open flame in your hands. This is the moment every fire lives or dies. The frontiersman, the native hunter, the frozen iceman, all of them knew that the coal is nothing without the nest to carry it to flame. It is the humblest trick of all, just dry plants gathered and fluffed by hand, and it is the one that makes fire itself possible. No gadget will ever build it for you. That knowledge, that patient shaping of dry grass into a nest, is what actually kept the human race warm for 100,000 years, and it will keep you warm too, long after the batteries are dead. Here is my challenge. Pick one of these and actually try it this week. The Vaseline cotton ball, the magnifying glass, the bow drill if you are brave. Then come back and tell me if I am wrong, because I made char cloth from an old shirt and lit it with a rock, and I have not trusted a plastic lighter since. Drop the one you are going to try in the comments, because these were never just camping tricks, they were the knowledge that kept people alive, and somewhere along the way, we traded it for a shelf full of gadgets that die in the rain.